Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Tenah and I'm one of the top players in the European scene. One of my biggest achievements probably counts to win the European Championship 2017, and I'm looking forward to win more tournaments in the future. But now I'm here to explain you the basics of Warlocks and what skills you need in PvP. Alright, let's start. So we have on our block ability, we have another skill that you can use depending on the situation. So in most situations you want to use the pushback, which is a 4-time hit, and this is pretty useful against classes that have iframe bubbles that resist 5 times. So you use this ability and press your LB once and the 5-time iframe is gone. Alright, so then we also have the knockdown. You barely use this one because it only procs if you successfully block, and yeah, it's not that much worth it. In another situation, which is Destroyer and Blade Dancer, in 1v1 you can use this ability to either tech chase the ground counter or use it when they hit you. So for the Dimension Volley, we use the right one, since it gives you 3 spectral orbs if you hit it on a stunned or airborne target. And Warlock is all about stuns and aerials. Alright, so since our RB procs 3 spectral orbs, we can use Dragon Helix. For Dragon Helix we decide between the left and the right one. The left one has consistent damage and always deals the same damage. Doesn't matter if your target is CC'd or not. The right one deals slightly more damage, but almost not relevant on a CC target, but therefore it deals way less damage if your target is not CC'd. So against spinning class you want to make sure to play the left one. The one plus point on this one is it charges additional Hongmoon focus, which helps you to charge your ultimate way faster. For Tetherblade, our X skill, we have knockdown, daze and stun. And in most situations you use stun, even in 3v3, because you can use your Dimension Volley on a stun target. Daze is no longer that useful on the Shadow build, since it doesn't proc your Dimensional Volley. Dimensional Salvo, that's the skill you want to have, but it's in the basic it's called Dimensional Volley. So Daze is most likely only for PvE use nowadays. Knockdown is a very important ability when it comes to spin classes, since on spinning classes, such as Destroyer and Blade Dancer, your only opener is a knockdown, which will make them stop spinning. So this one you want to make sure to use against Blade Dancers and Destroyers. For Wingstorm, you are pretty free in what you want to use. In the most matches I use the defense piercing one, since it pierces defense and parry. There's a few matchups where you can use the additional damage one, and it deals a lot of damage though, but you have one danger. It doesn't pierce defense, and it doesn't pierce parry skills. So the advantage on the defense pierce skill, you just have to hit your target, and it will always charge you 3 spectral orbs. As I've told you earlier, 3 spectral orbs means Dragon Helix. So Dragon Helix does not pierce defense, but it is still really useful since most of your damage comes through aerials. The damage increased Wingstorm is only useful against spinning classes when you are sure they're using their defense spin and not the deflect spin. Because if they run deflect spin, you have a huge danger of getting hit by the deflect, and this will give you a huge disadvantage. So the most matchups where I use this are Blade Dancers, Destroyers, Force Masters, and sometimes Summoners, but it's pretty risky against Summoners and you have to be really careful with this ability. Alright, let's go to the Sanctum. I use in literally every matchup the non-target Sanctum, which is the right one. It's called Disable Target. It will make you not targetable for 10 seconds and recovers 10% HP over 10 seconds. This effect also works for party members, and it also decreases 20% the party member, of the party members being in this Sanctum. Earlier in the times you could have used CC resist one, but nowadays you barely use it anymore, since it has been proven that in most matchups it's more worth to actually be non-targetable. So let's go to the LB. LB, you are pretty free what you want to use. So some people tend to use this one if they think they have chi manage problems. They most likely use this one. If you don't think you have chi manage problems, you can go for the HP recover. You barely actually use your LB in PvP unless you want to remove iframes or some other things. But yeah, I personally prefer the HP recovering one since Warlock's HP recover in PvP is pretty weak. Alright, Gravity Whale. There is only, Gravity Well. There's only one option in PvP, which is the pull, since you don't need damage increasement on this one because it's pretty RNG when it procs. Well, I mean technically when you spawn your pet, and yeah, that's about it. And same for the mana chi recoverment, it's not really that useful. So you most likely want to use that one, since it pulls the opponents and disables their approaches. For the Soul Shackle, we always want to make sure to use the airborne one. The airborne one is a guard disable. If you successfully break a block or counter, it will make the opponent guard broken for 6 seconds. And regardless on if you guard break them, it will brand them, which will make you able to use your leech. Yeah, and if you CC a target with a daze or stun, you can aerial them, and you can do that twice. For the imprison, we always want to make sure to go for the daze, since there's no other option. This one is purely for PvE, and it used to be useful in the past against summoners, but since the PvE build with the AoE roots has been nerfed, this build is no longer viable. So you use this against any matchup since it is your only CCs, and in PvP you want to make sure to have as many CCs as possible. Void Slash. Yeah, Void Slash is the pet RNG launch. Well, people call it pet RNG launch, but if you learn how to work with it, you actually get to know it's less RNG than people actually may think. The only RNG is that your pets can be stuck in an auto hit, and if you, for example, CC in the moment your pet uses an auto hit, it will instantly air launch, and it will be untappable. But this is actually really hard to execute and takes a lot of practice. But yeah, this is the one you use for PvP, this one is only PvE, or if you play a specific build, I haven't used it, but I've seen some other Warlocks trying it. Without pet aerial launch, you can use this one, which will remove aerials from your pet, and it will also deal a bit more damage. For our tab ability, we have 3 options: Obliterate, Time Distortion, and Soulburn. Soulburn is most likely used in PvE. It can be used in certain situations in 3v3, but it's pretty risky since you use 1 tag in for it in the most cases, and you have 1 minute 30 cooldown on it. In most scenarios you use Time Distortion, it resets your cooldowns 3 times. Not all of the cooldowns. Sanctum is not resettable, and your pet swap is not resettable, which we don't see here right now. And it is generally the best choice since it almost resets all abilities. Then there's Obliterate. It got used as meme ability in the past. Unfortunately, it is not as strong as it could be. But yeah, this one pulls your opponent, stuns it for 3 seconds, and deals a lot of damage if your opponent is in the air. It deals about 12,000 damage if it crits in an aerial, I believe, if I'm right. But yeah, it's pretty risky since you give up any cooldown resets and you have to make sure to play really safe. Alright, so those are the speccable abilities, and I will shortly go through the abilities that are not changeable but are also used in PvP. Alright, so here we have Rupture. It is not really that of an important ability. It basically pierces defense and parry and gets procced on Wingstorm and critical dimensional volley. So I most likely use it on when I have V, and you can use it as a finisher against a blocking BM who has like 10% HP left. But yeah, it became a less relevant ability in this build. Then we have our E ability. This makes your thrall stop hitting. It has 9-second cooldown and is also a 3-meter AoE, which also deals quite a bit damage. It deals like 2k damage if it crits in PvP. And yeah, it can be used to, for example, hit Sins out of stealth that are near you, or make your pet stop against a KFM that is proccing his counter out of your pet auto hits. One get up, I don't need to explain this one, it's pretty simple. It's an ground gaming ability which you get to use. Tab removes stun escapes, should be known. Pet stun, stuns for 2 seconds, nothing special to say about this one. It is used in the leech untappable combo, which I will show in another video, and yeah, that's it. It's a 2-second stun. This one can be used while you're grabbed. This one can escape you from grabs if you hit the right timing, so if your opponent grabs you and he uses, for example, an ability that is counterable, which there will be a guide as well, then it will escape you from the grab. Assess, you press S twice, it gives you 1.5 second iframe, not much to say about this. It also brands, that's probably the only thing you can say about this. And then we have our F roll that we can use when we are knocked down, dazed, or unconscious. Unconscious is pretty rarely used, unless by some BDs. Bastion is a 5-time iframe, it recovers 5% HP and removes snare. Not much to say about this ability. Leech is probably your most important ability as Warlock in the current patch. It is used in an untappable combo, which is called the Leech Q combo, and you will get to see more about this later on. And it is basically your only opener against a lot of matchups. And then we have Void Walk, which is our special second tab escape on a 1 minute 30 cooldown, which escapes from, well, that's wrong here. It says it escapes from knockdown or grapple, but it escapes from every kind of CC. Stun, daze, knockdown. It doesn't remove from unconscious, but it works on grapple as well, like the cat grapple. Awaken abilities, most likely used in PvE. And there we have our ultimate. We have 2 ultimates. This one is Enthrall. It is the damaging one and has a cast time of... don't let me lie, I think it's around about 2.5 seconds, but I never actually counted it. But yeah, it should be round about the length of Old Dragon Call. And basically is 100 to 0 if you land the first and the last hit. It should be a sure 100 to 0, but it's hard to execute if you're alone, and you barely get to use it in 1v1. I actually never procced it until today, but I used it very often in 3v3, and it's very useful in my opinion compared to other ultimates. This ultimate is a daze, and in my opinion it's totally useless. I've never ever used it in 3v3, and I still didn't totally figure out how it works. You use it, and after the use it dazes for 3 seconds. So yeah, in my opinion it's not that useful. Yeah, and this was the intro guide for Warlock. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any suggestions or want to know anything specific, you can write it in the comments. Please make sure to follow our channel. Also, if you don't play Warlock, there's a lot of other guides, so it's definitely worth following us. Have a great day.